Our current lunchtime leadership seminars are part of our Faithful and Fruitful program. It's a 5-year program of activities at the LCF as you think about what it is to be faithful and fruitful in the legal profession as followers of Jesus. In our first session, you'll recall that Felipe looked at what is just in just leadership. And last time, Mari considered the foundations for just leadership and the posture before God and before each other that we should adopt in leading in law. Both our videos are available on the LCF's YouTube channel if you missed them. Today we're going to explore what just leadership looks like in action, particularly when dealing with the difficult stuff that we come across. I'll briefly introduce the topic, and then as indicated in the email you've received, we'll move into breakout groups to see an example of Jesus managing what was for Peter at least, and what will be for many of us, a difficult conversation. Leadership does involve dealing with difficult things, which often involve just conflict or deliberate conflict that is about justice. Let me explain. So biblical righteousness, as we will be familiar with, is relational, living up to the values or the standards of the relationship. And when someone fails to live up to the values or standards expected of the relationship, actions needed to put things right. And justice in its widest sense is the action required to put things right. As lawyers know, justice, the action to put things right, often involves deliberately doing or saying things which the person on the receiving end of won't like, hence the potential for just conflict. Now, just conflict can be multi-directional. In leadership, we often think about difficult conversations being between a senior colleague and a more junior colleague, and often being in that direction of travel. And say, for example, working for a large national law firm as a senior manager, it was sometimes necessary to have difficult conversations about conduct, capability, promotion opportunities, and redundancies. And when a junior colleague hasn't behaved in accordance with their professional standards or lived up to the reasonable expectations of their employer, the person with leadership responsibilities may need to take action to put things right so they, the employer, behaves justly in that situation. And that may involve difficult things and conflict scenarios, such as disciplinary action, performance management, and even dismissal. On the other hand, a junior colleague may sometimes be called upon to speak truth to their more senior colleagues, for example, about unreasonable workloads, being overlooked for promotion, unfair allocation of cases, unethical behaviour, and even discrimination on the grounds of their religious belief. In situations where a more senior colleague hasn't lived up to the proper standards of their work relationship, the junior colleague may need to show leadership by doing something to put things right. And so today, whether managing a difficult conversation with someone who reports to you or with someone that you report to, we should ask, as in all of life's circumstances, just admit it, Rod, how does knowing Jesus make a difference in that situation and to that relationship? Because it should. Knowing Jesus should make a difference to every part of every day. We're called to whole life worship and whole life discipleship. We follow Jesus not just in church on Sunday, but also in our neighborhoods, our workplaces, and in our leadership responsibilities. No one can be a part-time follower of Jesus. Put differently, if we lead in a way that doesn't reflect the difference that knowing Jesus makes, we're not, as Christians, leading as we ought. So we're going to look at this issue of how to deal with difficult conversations as a follower of Jesus, someone who follows him, his teaching, his purposes, his aims, his character, by looking at the familiar passage about the restoration of Peter at the end of John's Gospel. In a moment, I'll read slowly through the passage. Enjoy the passage as I'm reading it to you. As I do so, look out for the principles that are set out in that passage, which can be applied today. Identify and hold in your mind the aim of John's Gospel. Our passage begins with that. And also look out for Jesus' leadership purposes, evangelistic and pastoral. as revealed in these events. And finally, just allow your heart to be warmed as you see the nature of Jesus' divine character revealed in his relationships with his disciples, and particularly with Peter. So let me begin. I'm reading from John's Gospel, chapter 20, and beginning with verse 30 through to chapter 21 and verse 22. I'm reading from the English Standard Version. Now, Jesus did many other signs in the presence of the disciples, which are not written in this book. But these are written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. After this, Jesus revealed himself again to the disciples by the Sea of Tiberias, and he revealed himself in this way. Simon Peter, Thomas called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 others of his disciples were together. Simon Peter said to them, I am going fishing. They said to him, we will go with you. They went out and got into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. Just as day was breaking, Jesus stood on the shore, yet the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to them, children, do you have any fish? They answered him, no. He said to them, cast the net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some. So they cast it. And now they were not able to haul it in because of the quantity of fish. That disciple whom Jesus loved therefore said to Peter, it is the Lord. When Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on his outer garment, for he was stripped for work, and threw himself into the sea. The other disciples came in the boat, dragging the net full of fish, for they were not far from the land, but about 100 yards off. When they got out on land, they saw a charcoal fire in place with fish laid out on it and bread. Jesus said to them, bring some of the fish that you have just caught. So Simon Peter went aboard and hauled the net ashore full of large fish, 153 of them. And although there were so many, the net was not torn. Jesus said to them, come and have breakfast. Now, none of the disciples dared ask him, who are you? They knew it was the Lord. Jesus came and took the bread and gave it to them, and so with the fish. This was now the 3rd time that Jesus was revealed to the disciples after he was raised from the dead. When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? He said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. He said to him, feed my lambs. He said to him a second time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? He said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. He said to him, tend my sheep. He said to him the 3rd time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter was grieved because he said to him the 3rd time, do you love me? And he said to him, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. Jesus said to him, feed my sheep. Truly, truly, I say to you, when you were young, you used to dress yourself and walk wherever you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and another will dress you and carry you where you do not want to go. This he said to show by what kind of death he was to glorify God. After saying this, he said to him, follow me. Peter turned and saw the disciple whom Jesus loved following them, the one who had been reclining at table close to him and had said, Lord, who is it that is going to betray you? When Peter saw him, he said to Jesus, Lord, what about this man? Jesus said to him, if it is my will that he remain until I come, what is that to you? You follow me.